marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Nurse Heather is back to spread some more good news, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, beautiful listeners. This is Good News with Cannabis Nurse Heather and our very special guest, the Cannabis Kunindera, Kristalla Allen. And just before the break, we were talking about a conference that is coming. Tell us a little bit more, Nurse Heather, about that, and then we'll have our beautiful guest tell us some more.
Oh, yes, Kristalla. You and I have had the opportunity to see each other, and Kenny as well, to see each other speak at different conferences and events. But we have never really been together on a panel, and this is going to change on October 12th. I'm really excited that we are all involved in the National Cannabis Summit being held in Denver. Can you share some of the details? I know you've been involved about this conference with all of our Good News listeners.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited about this conference, and I'm just even just to hang out with you guys for the weekend is going to be great. But it's really the first national cannabis conference that has included a full tribal track, and that is a big. No one's done that yet to this date. What's been happening is, some of these conferences have, one or two people that are working with tribes and pardon me. So it's really important for us to have a full, robust tribal track. One of the main things that we're doing that's really putting this in a different place is, for the very first time, we have a panel for Red Crow Cannabis, which is a native-owned cannabis company, and with several tribal deals. And for the first time, we have actual tribal council chairpersons coming out publicly to speak about their projects and what they've done and how they've gotten things moving. It's really still touchy. A lot of tribes are still kind of nervous about even going to a cannabis summit. And so we're really grateful to Red Crow Cannabis. I'm very grateful to MJ Conferences for even asking us to do this full tribal track. And, education, I think it's education all the way around, not just for tribal members, but also for people that want to learn about how to engage with Indian country and what we're looking for and what we're trying to do.
This is a very magical morning, I must tell you, Kristalla, because just as we started our program, several large crows have landed just outside our studio. I'm just wondering if there's some spiritual significance to that. I'm not crow, I'm clan, but you might want to put out a couple shiny things for them. Crows like shiny things, They come around the shiny. So you guys are putting off a little shiny over there, and you're drawing them in. That's interesting. You've got some elders coming around listening to us. Of course, this big full moon we just had is still very, very strong, and a lot of spiritual stuff swirling around. So
we've got lots of crow medicine going on today. It's wonderful. Magical Madam Mota. You have been a spiritual boost for all of us today, and all of our listeners will feel this as well. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your beauty, and your vision with all of us. Do you have any final words of wisdom to leave with our listeners?
I would just say that there are millions of people who look at this plant from it has touched them spiritually. They want to connect with it more deeply. What I would say would be go out and sit with your medicine for a little bit. Just have a little bit of it, and then see what happens. And then see what happens.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, you guys, for inviting me. It was very sweet of you.
I was wondering, Nurse Heather, because
Cristala had mentioned about the roots going back to Sicily, and I just was wondering in my own mind if Don Corleone had had a little bit of cannabis, maybe there would be a few less people sleeping with the fishes.
Well, she says it works for anger and sadness. So, indeed. Oh, Kenny, I don't know about you, but my spirit is feeling juiced. Between the super blood moon and these messages of healing from Cristala, I'm ready to go out in the world and create some magic of my own.
That's right, Nurse Heather. And you know, the thing about Nurse Heather is that she's trained as a registered nurse and was very accomplished in that area. And yet, Nurse Heather, you learn so much from the Hispanic healers and from the Native American healers. And I think that was almost the subject for another show.
It's all well-rounded, indeed. Thank you, beautiful listeners, for being with us. We'll see you next time.
This is Canna Kenny, and Good News with Cannabis Nurse Heather. We enjoyed having our very spiritual special guest, Cristala Allen, Madam Mota, as she's sometimes referred to. Nurse Heather, this has been another wonderful show. We look forward to seeing our beautiful listeners and sponsors for our next one. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Good News with Nurse Heather. You can download past episodes of our program by going to cannabisradio.com or subscribing to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. Also, you can follow the show on Facebook and Google+. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without proper consent of CannabisRadio.com is prohibited. Maui Wowie, Acapulco Gold, California Kush. Our strains stretch everywhere too. This is the Cannabis Radio Network.
BBC News with Jonathan Izard. Britain says it's more likely than not that a bomb brought down a Russian airliner over Egypt last Saturday, killing more than 200 people. It said the assessment was based on a review of all the intelligence available. Russia said it was shocked that Britain hadn't shared the information with Moscow. All flights from airports in Britain to Sharm el-Sheikh have been suspended. The German airline Lufthansa Group has also temporarily withdrawn its flights to the Egyptian resort. The U.S. Defense Secretary has visited a U.S. aircraft carrier in the South China Sea. Beijing described the visit as provocative and a threat to the sovereignty and security of other countries. The Real Madrid football star Karim Benzema has been placed under formal investigation for complicity in attempts to blackmail his fellow French international Mathieu Valbuena. If formal charges follow, Benzema could face a jail sentence of at least 5 years. Reports from Syria say that rebel groups have captured a town on the vital highway from Damascus to Aleppo. On Wednesday, government forces said they'd retaken control of the alternative route to Aleppo. Kurdish militants in Turkey have announced an end to a short-lived ceasefire. In a statement on a news agency close to the militants, the PKK said that its month-long halt to hostilities was over as a result of what it called the governing AK party's war policy. France is to send its largest warship, the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, to support operations against Islamic State militants and other jihadists in Syria. The French President's office said the vessel, which can carry up to 40 aircraft, would shorten the time it takes French jets to carry out airstrikes and bolster France's presence in the region. The biggest anti-corruption trial in Italy for years has opened in Rome after the city's finances and services were brought to the brink of collapse. Mafia bosses, local politicians and businessmen are among some 4 dozen suspects accused of pocketing millions of dollars by rigging Rome's public services. BBC News.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct! Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The Kremlin has rejected Britain's suggestion a bomb is likely to have caused last weekend's Russian plane crash in Egypt. A spokesman for President Putin says any theories as to what caused the crash are just speculation at this stage. Lorna Shaddick reports from Moscow.
The Russian president's spokesman told reporters on Thursday that Moscow isn't ruling out any theories about the crash at the moment. But there are no grounds, he said, to name its definitive cause yet. And the Kremlin will wait for the official investigators on the ground to make their decision. Dmitry Peskov added that Russia hopes that any new information about the cause of the crash will be handed to the investigators on the ground. And he said Britain's suspension of flights to and from Sharm el-Sheikh, from where the plane took off, is its sovereign decision, but Russian planes will continue to fly to and from the resort. Meanwhile, Russia's military has said it's sending missile defense systems to its air force in Syria to prevent, it said, the possibility of Russian aircraft operating there from being hijacked or shot at. It's not clear if there's any link to Britain's latest announcement. Lorna Shaddick, Moscow.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister David Cameron and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi have been holding talks at Downing Street. On the agenda, security measures after the UK's halting of flights between Sharm el-Sheikh and Britain. Dan Whitehead has more from Downing Street.
As the two leaders meet behind closed doors here at 10 Downing Street, at the end of Downing Street, there's a mass of protesters, hundreds in favour of President Sisi's visit, supporters of the leader, also hundreds against this visit by President Sisi. This was always going to be a controversial visit, made more so, of course, by the huge security challenges now being faced between the two countries after that Russian airliner was brought down. The British Prime Minister David Cameron has said that it will be some time before all UK tourists who are stranded in Sharm el-Sheikh will be returned to the UK, adding that it was increasingly likely that a terrorist bomb was behind the downing of that Russian airliner, leading to more than 200 deaths. Those will be the top topics being discussed behind number 10 Downing Street between David Cameron and President Sisi. Dan Whitehead on Downing Street.
France international footballer Karim Benzema has been placed under formal investigation over a sex tape blackmail plot which involves another footballer. The striker, who plays for Real Madrid at club level, appeared before a judge in Versailles after being held in custody. Police are looking into what part he may have played in an alleged attempt to extort money from the fellow French international Mathieu Valbuena. In Myanmar, the opposition leader Aung San Suu Kyi says she would be above the president if her National League for Democracy wins the election on Sunday. The elections in the country will be Myanmar's first openly contested polls in 25 years. For more from us, you can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/featurestorynews. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. US Defense Secretary Ash Carter has visited an aircraft carrier currently travelling in the disputed South China Sea. This comes just over a week after a US missile destroyer came within 12 nautical miles of China's man-made islands in the Spratly archipelago. William Denslow reports.
Aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt, Ash Carter said the US had had a stabilising presence in the region and that tension was rising in the South China Sea over territorial claims. This visit comes just a few days after the US Navy sent the USS Lassen within 12 nautical miles of artificial islands built by China in the Spratly archipelago. The move angered Beijing, with Chinese Navy officials urging the US to stop its provocative acts, warning that minor incidents could spark war in the South China Sea. Over $5 trillion worth of trade passes through this area each year, and the US has maintained that the free flow of commerce is critical.
The European Union's released its autumn 2015 economic forecasts, showing continued expected overall growth despite tricky economic times. Greece and Spain see particularly gloomy predictions, as Kevin Ozebek reports from Brussels.
Moderate recovery despite challenges. That's the tagline for the autumn 2015 European economic forecast. The overall EU GDP is predicted to grow by 1.6% in 2015 and 1.8% in 2016. There are still major concerns in the member states, however. Spain's deficit is predicted to grow more than in previous forecasts. That could be a major factor in Spanish elections coming in December. Greece is heading back into recession after the crisis which almost saw the country leave the single currency euro in June. Germany, the EU's largest economy, is expecting continued growth and says there has been a so-called soft landing following the Chinese market disruption of recent months.
That's the latest feature story news. Ollie Barrett reporting.
every strain, every sale, every medical study. Keep it right here on the Cannabis Radio Network.
From the Sky News Centre at 4, David Cameron says British holidaymakers stuck in Egypt will be flown home as soon as the government